there's an Israeli spy who was kidnapped in Iraq. And this is a very complex and interesting story. And I want to walk you guys through it. Her name is Elizabeth Tsurkov. Okay? That's her photo right there. She basically went in pretending to be a Russian. Okay? And the Cradle, they are the ones who broke the story of her being kidnapped or abducted. And within, a few minutes, the Israelis, their hand was forced. Within a few minutes, they had to admit that, oh yeah, she is missing actually. And she's been missing since March. We're in July. This is also good, by the way, from Electronic Intifada. This is from Ali, from Tamara, and from Asa. From my friend Asa and Stanley. They did great work here. So she's this woman, this Israeli woman, is really something. She is really something. She's had Twitter for 15 years, and she has spent all of this time posting anti-Syria stuff, anti-Shia stuff, basically saying that Hezbollah is also bad, and she whatever bad thing or harm you can think about that has happened to Syria, she has wished for it, and Lebanon. She was actually in 2006 when there was a war in Lebanon. She's very deceitful. And she, as soon as she went missing. By the way, this you can see the contrast, right? That's her on the left, and that's her on the right, pretending to be an Iraqi woman. Netanyahu said that she went missing in Iraq working on her PhD. Okay, Princeton University. The thing is, though, that if you are a student at Princeton, you are not allowed to go to Iraq. You are not allowed to go to Iraq for any purpose, any academic purpose, anything that has to do with your thesis. Nothing. Zero. None. Okay, so this applies to all students, and it applies to Iraq, and they have a list of countries where they forbid you from going. So somebody here is lying. There are a few ways we can look at this, but I'll get to that in a moment, because I want to show you, what she's been doing. Like I said, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is Al-Qaeda. Okay, so she's basically showing, wow, look how benevolent Al-Jolani, who is a terrorist, and as I said, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is Al-Qaeda in Syria. Look how benevolent they are. Here she was talking about some fake account pretending to be a lesbian in Syria. I think it was called Gay Girl from Damascus, Amina Arab. This turned out to be some man, I think from the United States or Scotland or some it wasn't a person. It was a fake online personality. Yeah, it was an American living in Scotland. Okay? And, here she's making fun of Palestinian Christians and, Arab Christians like myself, and pretending like, like that Jesus was appropriated by Arab Christians. What? I don't know what is wrong with her. Well, she's a Zionist. That's what's wrong with her. But, just like these usual, these anti-Arab tropes. And here, even the Senate Foreign Relations Committee saying that she was a Princeton PhD candidate abducted in Iraq. How is that possible? How is that possible when you are banned from going to Iraq by Princeton for anything to do with your studies? Any reason. They even say that if you go on holiday to Iraq and then start working on your academic research there, that's also forbidden. So there's no way you can tackle this. It gets worse. Look, here she is. She's saying, Ashed Surya wa saqat al-Assad, right? So, long live Syria and down with Assad. That's what she's saying. And she's wearing this disgusting colonial French rag of a flag, a so-called flag. It's a rag. It's from French colonial times, but the opposition in Syria, out of all the goddamn colors and flags on earth, and they pick this piece of crap. Anyway, so, she's like pretending she supports Syrian democracy, So turns out that she willingly admits that she was in the Israeli army, and specifically in intelligence. Okay, it's not me putting words in her mouth. It's not me saying this. It's not me, getting this from someone else. It's her. She's saying, it's openly saying this, that she was working in Israeli intelligence. Now, I've said before in the past that Israelis, it's mandatory. Okay, you have to, whether you're female or male, you have to do the Israeli army. It's they have mandated service, and they're trained killers. And I know that over the years, the rate of people who try to, wiggle out of it and avoid doing their military service, if you can call it that, is higher and higher. But I stand by my point that they are trained killers. In any case, if you work in intelligence, this is something that you volunteer for. No one obliges you to go work in intelligence, okay? In addition to that, she also admits that she helped attack Lebanon in 2006. This is her in Iraq. Giving an interview, posing as an Iraqi journalist. Let's play the clip, okay? Let's play the clip and I'll translate. The beginning is amazing, right? So they're basically saying down with Israel and down with the United States. Okay, and then they get to this part.
وصفنا صلاة الجمعة. شنو رأيك فيها؟ صلاة الجمعة يعني بمدينة الصدر معروفة جدا كحادث تاريخي. له يعني. Yeah, so
she's saying this mosque is famous for the revolutionaries it's produced and and so on. And let me skip ahead a little bit.
إنه قدرت تروح بأيام الكوفة. هذا المكان يعني هذا مدينة الصدر هي معروفة حتى من ناحية دولية كمكان اللي ولد ثورات وانتفاضات وخاصة هذا الجامع.
يعني رمز للشجاعة.
Right. She's saying that about Sadr, right? And she's saying specifically this mosque, right? It's the place where uprisings and revolutionaries have come from.
الشجاعة ومقاومة ضد أي ظالم، يعني ظالم إذا هو يعني محلي مثل صدام أو دولي مثل أمريكا.
Yeah, and wow, and she's saying she's speaking like somebody. This is really this is multiple layers of deceit. The way that she's speaking is like someone who supports the resistance. When I say resistance, you guys know what I mean, right? I'm talking about the resistance axis, right? So anyone that's against Zionism and American imperialism, so that's Iran, that's PMU in Iraq, that's Syria, Yemen, and so on. But she's speaking in a way like she's trying to be. She's trying to convince the guy interviewing her that she is like that, and she's talking about resistance against internal politicians, like she mentions Saddam Hussein, and then also external problems like America
أو دولي مثل أمريكا. فأجيت لمدينة الصدر ومناطق ثانية شعبية ببغداد على مود أتكلم على هذا التاريخ، تاريخ الانتفاضة خاصة بالتسعينات. أيوة.
شنو رأيك بسماحة السيد الصدر؟
أتوقع إنه هو من القيادة الموجودة بالعراق هو شخصية واضح إنه هي وطنية وترفض.
Yeah, so he asked her, what do you think of Muqtada al-Sadr, right? So who is very important. He's not just a political figure. He has his own party, very, very popular in Iraq, and very, he's not pro-resistance. He is the resistance. You understand? So he asked her, what do you think of him? And she says that he's
وطنية وترفض تدخلات الدول غربية أو شرقية.
Yeah, she says he has he's strong positions and he's against any intervention in Iraq and vice versa. He's focused on Iraq.
وهذا برأيي لازم يكون موقف كل قائد سياسي عراقي.
And she says that's how every Iraqi politician, that's a position that every Iraqi politician should have. Jesus Christ.
هم عراقيين.
she's really an actress, you know.
ولازم يهتموا بمصالح بلدهم مو مصالح دول ثانية.
Right, and you should take care of your own country, not other countries.
فأنا أحترم هذا الموقف.
And she says, and I respect this position very much.
ريت بقية السياسيين بالعراق كانوا مثله يعني.
Yeah, right. And she says, I wish all the politicians in Iraq were like that.
كان يهتموا بمصالح العراق وشعبها مو مصالح.
They're focused on Iraq's interests. And he says, are you Muslim? He asks her, are you Muslim? And she says, no.
مو مسلمة.
رغم أنت مو مسلمة.
مو مسلمة.
بس حبيتي يعني مو دافع عقائدي وإنما دافع وطني.
إيه بالضبط يعني.
الشخصية آل الصدر يحبون الوطن.
إيه بالضبط يعني.
There's nothing wrong with not being Muslim, right? You have many Iraqis who are Christian and so on, but she's dressed like a Muslim woman. I don't know if she broke character for a second. I don't know. It's weird. Why does she dress up like a Muslim woman and then when she's not Muslim? And you know, that was the only moment in the entire video where she tells the truth. Right? And he asks her, like, so your thinking is like, you know, it stems from a national, basically, like, it's nothing to do with religion. It's about the well-being of the country, right? You know, when we talk about nationalism in you know the global South, is nothing to do with like it's an anti-colonial position essentially, you know. But yeah, that's basically what she's saying. She's pretending to be an Iraqi woman and a journalist.
هذا من ناحيتي رمز المقاومة رمز لي
right, and then she supports the resistance. Her Arabic is good. It's very good. You know, it's not perfect, but it's good. It's this is someone who has been, you know, like this. She is a Russian woman, and both her parents are Russian. I've told you before, many Israelis they're Russian, Polish, Ukrainian. What the hell is she doing, man? I mean, look, let me be clear. You know, if she was born in Iraq, okay, you know, that makes sense. Or if one of her parents were Iraqi, okay. Or if she grew up there or something, okay. But she is a Russian Israeli woman posing as a journalist. And she admits on her own Twitter that she was in the Israeli military working in intelligence. I mean, Jesus Christ. What more do you need? Maybe let me play devil's advocate for a second. And let's say for a second that here she was truly just going as a researcher in Iraq, even though it's banned by Princeton University and would not count towards her degree. Okay. And you know, even though she's lying about who she is, does that change that she's worked in Israeli intelligence? No, it doesn't. It doesn't change that, and it doesn't change that she's lying here. She's pretending to be an Iraqi woman who is passionate about Iraq's well-being and supports Muqtada al-Sadr and the resistance. This is, like I said, multiple layers of deceit. In other words, it's called a cover. 99.9%, I am sure and convinced that this woman is a spy. 99.99999%. The only reason I leave a tiny decimal point is in the odd chance, in the impossible astronomical chance that she's actually really there on research. I do not believe that this woman is truthful. She is a goddamn liar. This gets deeper and it gets worse because she knows that she's not allowed to go to Iraq. So that means she lied on her visa application. That means that she lied to the Iraqi foreign ministry that gave her the visa, okay, about who she is. Obviously, she didn't use her Israeli citizenship to get in because let me explain this, okay, because maybe this is, I mean, I know this, but, and I'll reiterate this. If you are an Israeli, there is no way in hell that you are getting a visa to Iraq or Syria or Iran or Lebanon. You are banned from interacting, not just going in, from interacting with these countries in any way. You are not allowed. Do you understand? There are no ties. It's not just an absence of ties. Iraq is officially still in a state of war with Israel. Syria is also occupied by Israel and still in a state of war with Israel. Lebanon, the same thing. No way. So she lied about who she is to get in, because if they had known that she's a dual citizen and still Israeli, she's not getting in. Doesn't matter. She has Russian citizenship and American citizenship as well. She's not getting in. There's no way. And then on top of that, you know, I don't know if her university is covering for her or not. I'll get to that in a second. But she's putting the people that she is in contact with. This journalist, for example, who interviewed her, is now in trouble because of her, probably. You know, in Iraq, you can go to prison for life or be sentenced to death for interacting with an Israeli. That is how serious this is. Okay. You can be sentenced to death for interacting with an Israeli. And to be honest, given what Israel is, I do not blame them, and I support this law, because Israel kills Arabs and colonizes Arab lands and is nothing but an European colonial outpost. It should not even be there in the first place. And it's because of people like her, spies, infiltrating the country, that we cannot have nice things. Why do you think there is not only an excuse or a pretext, but almost, you know, a self-fulfilling prophecy for authoritarianism? You know, the Israelis love to say, oh, Israel's the only democracy and all these Arab countries are authoritarian. They're authoritarian because you made them that way. They have to be because of people like her posing as a journalist, posing as a Princeton student, and spying inside the country. That's why. It's exactly because of people like her that we cannot have nice things. She's just one that's been caught. She's just one of them that's been caught. She's sloppy. This woman is a spy. This is not the only interview, by the way, that she gave. There's another one. I didn't look at it yet because this video was all I needed to know. You know, it's this woman has been trained. She has been trained in Arabic. She was also posting, I think, about how crappy her Arabic was. So she has had intensive Arabic training in the years leading up to when she was kidnapped. So in the last 6-7 years or so, right? Very, very intense. You don't speak like that. You don't learn Arabic as a second or third language and speak it like that unless you have been, you've undergone intensive training where it's your job, almost like a spy. No one speaks Arabic that well and learns it in a few years. No one. So, maybe she has a talent for languages. She obviously does. Doesn't change that she's an Israeli spy. That she attacked Lebanon. Lebanon, in 2006, the Israelis bombed it for 33 days, right? So it was right about this time, exactly this time, in July and August. They got taught a lesson, but it doesn't come without costs on the Lebanese population. So she's also been in Lebanon illegally, in Syria as well. But in Syria, there's, I love Iraq and I love Palestine, but there was no way in hell this bitch is getting a visa from a Syrian embassy. That's why she had to go in illegally through Turkey and hang out with her jihadi friends, which Israel supports. You need to understand that she's not spent 15 years only lying about Arab countries, but covering for Israel. So when Israel was supporting and is supporting Al-Qaeda in Syria, up until the point when it was still being denied, she was helping, maintain this nonsense. I mean, she can't do it anymore because the former Mossad chief has come out and said, yeah, we support Al-Qaeda in Syria. He said that. She's a fart next to that guy. So, once the cat's out of the bag, there's nothing to hide anymore. But she definitely did her part, so to speak. I mean, it's almost like a comedy, really, almost like a comedy. Look at the effort that she puts in. She's so desperate. Jesus Christ, It's kind of funny though, because even though she is an Israeli trying to hide that she's an Israeli, she's still a Russian. Do you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, who are Israelis? Most of them are, not most of them, but let's say a good chunk, Eastern European, right? And the prime ministers, all of them are Eastern European, all of them, the Israeli prime ministers, maybe with the exception of Naftali Bennett. It doesn't change my point. So it's kind of ironic that she had to come into Israel as a Russian and then go out of and leave Israel as a Russian. It's kind of funny. It's like there's a good bit of there's a good joke to be made there, right? And here's some more irony for you. So here she says, this is her, right? She says, it's all too common in Israeli media that Israeli journalists put somebody's life at risk because they don't tell the person they're interviewing that they are Israeli. When they do, people run the other way, as you saw during the World Cup. But she's criticizing what she is doing herself in Iraq, right? So this is actually just in, a few months? She posted that in August 2021, and then this interview is March 2022. It's not even a year apart. So she's saying here that Israeli journalists often put people's lives at risk because they can get into trouble for having done an interview with an Israeli, right? And this is, I think in that case it was an Afghan man or so, I don't know. I think someone with the Taliban who did an interview with an Israeli journalist, and the Israeli didn't tell him that he's Israeli, because if he had, there would have been no interview. So she's criticizing this guy for that, and then she goes into Iraq, and then does the same goddamn thing and puts all of these guys' lives, all of their lives at risk by hiding that she's Israeli. Isn't that funny? She certainly has a taste for hypocrisy. I'll give her that, So somebody is lying here. Someone is lying. I would not be surprised. Again, I'm just speculating here, but I think my argument is very strong. I would not be surprised if Princeton University are running covers for Israelis who wish to pose as U.S. students, because Netanyahu is saying she went to Iraq posing. Well, he didn't say posing. He said to work on her PhD at Princeton. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee in the United States is also saying she went to Iraq to work on her PhD. Princeton University, Princeton, they themselves are saying she went to Iraq to work on her PhD. So someone is lying here. Someone is lying. And by the way, here she is in the Pentagon. This is in 2015. And she's standing at one of the podiums that they have and saying, I hereby declare a no-fly zone over Syria. Yeah, looks like that no-fly zone went up your ass, you spy Israeli bitch. All she does is wish death and destruction on people's land that she has stolen. Because, by the way, where do you think she lives? Of course, in an illegal settlement. So her parents came from Russia to the West Bank and stole someone's land. So, I don't think she'll be doing too much laughing now. The group that took her is Kata'ib Hezbollah, so it's not Hezbollah in Lebanon. It's still a resistance group. Okay, it's still a part of the resistance, and that they'll be screaming out, say, "Oh my God, it's Iran, Iran or no Iran." She is in the country illegally. She lied about who she is. This is the second time, if I'm not mistaken, that we know of, that she's gone to Iraq, using a cover. She has put people's lives at risk. And this is, there's nothing to do with Iran. She has angered people in Iraq. Forget Iran. You don't need to involve Iran. She's angered people everywhere, If you did that in the United States, Israel is an enemy, and it's still in a state of war with Lebanon and Iraq and Syria and so on. So the danger of having an Israeli coming into the country is much greater, right? the Israelis like to pretend they're victims. They like to pretend that, everybody hates them, and they've done nothing at all, and they're just victims. And no. This is ridiculous. They get billions of dollars every year in funding, and some of the things that you don't see, which they also receive from the United States, are covers like this. Remember, Princeton University is an elite Ivy League university. Biden and all these people go there anyway. I mean, just because you went to an Ivy League university doesn't make you an Israeli spy, obviously. But my point is that the same circles and power centers in the West who fund Israeli occupation, who created the Israeli occupation, they come from these institutions. These institutions help maintain that. That doesn't mean that they don't educate well. They educate very well. There's nothing wrong with that. The point is, though, that they are, even though they are establishments, with reputations and they give out fancy degrees and everything, that doesn't make them exempt from being used by the intelligence agencies to provide covers. This is nothing new. You can go back 100 years and find the same phenomenon in England and so on. There's nothing new about that. To me, the fact that Princeton are coming out and kind of, say, oh, we are concerned for her, and not denying, that she was working on her studies, or rather, let's put it in a different, lens. Let's forget Princeton for a second and say that, look at just the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Netanyahu. These are two statements, both of them saying that, that she went there to work on her PhD. They know this is banned. They know this is not allowed. Here's a statement from Princeton. They said, Elizabeth is a valued member of the Princeton University community. We are deeply concerned for her safety and well-being, and we are eager for her to be able to rejoin her family and resume her studies. So was she studying or not? What was she doing in Iraq? No one knows. Tune in next week for this episode of Israeli Spy Gets Caught. No, but seriously, there's a thought here, that perhaps she might be exchanged. There will be a prisoner exchange. Who the hell knows between whom and whom? It could be Palestinians in exchange for her. Although, if you ask me, she's not worth one pinky finger on a Palestinian. But she might be exchanged with, who knows? I mean, like I said, Kataib Hezbollah have her, but the resistance is not just one group. It's a collective. So, they're probably working on something. Just as the situation stands now, she could be sentenced to death in Iraq legally because she came in and broke the law. You have to understand, just to give you another idea why this is so serious. In Syria, an Israeli spy almost became the defense minister. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying a Syrian politician who was the defense minister or almost the defense minister spied for Israel. No. An Israeli was sent into Syria, became, very popular, befriended the right people, and was almost made the defense minister. Do you understand how serious that is? His name is Eli Cohen, right? I mean, the funny thing is that his parents are originally Syrian, but, I mean, I think he was born in Egypt, if I'm not mistaken. They sent him to Argentina to mix in with the expat, the Syrian expat community. Then they got him into Syria, into the Golan Heights. He did a lot of work for them and almost became the defense minister before he was caught. So when we're talking, obviously she's not Eddie Cohen, but there is a dangerous precedent for this thing. Israel, with its overt and covert behavior, is an existential threat to Syria, to Iraq, to Palestine. It just is. And she knows what she's doing. She's learned enough about Arab culture and about anti-colonial positions to try and pretend to be, one of them. I mean, it's really stunning. It's like, I'm trying to find some kind of analogy for this, but there really isn't one. It's like, if I told you this is like someone, I don't know, an FBI agent pretending to be a neo-Nazi to blend it, it still wouldn't come anywhere near as how deceitful this is. Like I said, we are talking about countries that are at war here. I mean, Israel's not a country, but you get the idea. This is really, really, really bad. And like I said, I mean, she's lucky to be alive. I think if you look at the law in Iraq, and this is just last year in 2022, they passed a law that sentenced to that can sentence any Iraqi to death just for interacting with an Israeli. Okay, so think of the danger that she has put these people in, and who she is. You know, she's an enemy spy coming into the country. She can pose as a researcher all she likes. This woman openly says who she is. You know, why should we have any reason to doubt her? It's not like she's a trained liar. It's not like she's an Israeli spy or something. She would never lie. Come on. You know what the best thing would be? They should send her back to Russia. Just expatriate her, man. Just let her go home. I'm only advocating for her to go home, right? She's a Russian woman. Let her go back to Russia, right? With regard to to Elizabeth, the Israeli spy who seems to have gotten lost in Iraq. You know, in case this isn't clear, if you go to Israel and then afterwards you try traveling to Iraq or to Syria or to Lebanon, and they see in your passport or they find out some other way that you have been to Israel, you are not entering the country. And vice versa, by the way. Same thing. If you're you've been to Syria, the Israelis are never letting you in. I understand. You have to grasp why in Iraq they passed this law with in 2022, where if you interact with an Israeli, so it's not just whether you traveled, it's just if you interact with an Israeli, you can go to jail or even be sentenced to death. I mean, obviously this is, the death sentence, I think. What does interact mean? You helped an Israeli spy in Iraq? Well, I think in every country, in most countries, yeah, if you're found, if you're found guilty of espionage, they'll lock you up and throw away the key. And we're not talking about that. The thing is, in Iraq, the reason for these extreme measures is because of people like Elizabeth, because they abuse and exploit other, just regular people to gather information, to relay information to Tel Aviv. There's even speculation that whether she herself went to Iraq genuinely, just as a researcher, doesn't mean that the Mossad, the Israeli spy services, security service and intelligence agency, wasn't using her as a spy, right? Without her knowledge, who the hell knows? I mean, I really, that's a bit far-fetched. I'm pretty sure she'd be a willing volunteer, given that she volunteered to work in intelligence. But, I'm just saying that even in the most, generous of cases, like if you're really, really trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, there's still no way to look at this in a positive light, because dude, she is an enemy spy. We are not talking about, some like a Canadian spy who's, in Belgium gathering waffle recipes or some crap. This is an enemy spy. She after what Israel has done to Iraq, has done to Syria, has done to Palestine. No wonder that you get laws like this. No wonder you have, authoritarian streaks when you are in a state of war, permanent war, because of NATO, because of Israel. It's no wonder you are going to get authoritarian measures and laws in the country. I'm not talking about the law from 2022. I'm speaking generally in the last decades, right? Especially after Eli Cohen, who almost became the defense minister. Jesus Christ. It's really not a joke. It's really not a joke. So, she not only put herself at risk, not that I give a crap, she especially put others at risk. You know, she writes about, this is on Twitter, you can go see for yourself, you know, writes about friends. She has friends in Syria and friends in Lebanon who can't admit that they are friends with her, you know, because if anyone found out that they have an Israeli friend, they would be shunned and all this crap. No, they wouldn't be shunned. You are putting their lives at risk. You know what you're doing. She knows this. She's putting their lives at risk. One of you is saying she couldn't be Mossadder. Yeah, I mean, I really don't know. I don't know if anyone doubts that she's a spy. I mean, again, she's walking around Iraq pretending to be a Muslim Iraqi woman. Well, actually, no. She said that she's not Muslim, but she's dressed as one, right? Which is also weird. Like, I mean, unless you're going into a mosque, fine. But you know, like I said, Iraq, Syria, you know, you have people from all kinds of, you know, backgrounds and religions, and you don't have to wear one, a hijab, in Iraq. Why would she put that on and then say she's not? Like, it's so weird. Her behavior is so weird. The Arabic though is very good, you know, like the way that she spoke in the interview. She's not Iraqi. She's not Arabic. She's not part Arabic. She's not born in an Arab country. She's an Israeli spy. I'm done. I'm done.